I want to share with you one verse tonight in the book of Isaiah, chapter 55. And I guess I want to talk about sometimes when our plans and God's plans don't match up. Because sometimes it just don't work like we think it ought to work or like we want it to work at times. But let's talk about that just a moment. One verse out of Isaiah 55 and verse 8. I'll let you just keep your seats tonight. Isaiah 55 verse 8. The Bible says these words, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord." Think about that. My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways. And there's the problem. So often we get interrupted in life. We get these big plans for ministry, for family, for everything to fall right into place. And then when you get there, it just seems like everything goes south. Everything goes just the opposite of what we planned. And have you ever just stopped and said, "God, where were you at? Where was y'all at? God, where was you at? What's going on in my life?" Well, we got to remember this. When God's plans don't match ours, don't try to kick a door down. Just don't kick a door down. Find the will of God and God's plan. Now, we think we got it all planned out, don't we? I mean, I got everything planned out tomorrow. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing all the way to it. But I don't know. God might have a different route for me. For example, no offense, but we don't know when the last breath of life's coming. I might take mine tomorrow. I might take mine tonight. We don't know when that day's coming. But you got to be careful. Don't try to kick a door down. Now, Jonah, how many of you ever heard of Jonah in the Bible? All right, what did Jonah do?
He's a backslidden Baptist.
He's a backslidden Baptist. Amen. That's well spoken. He wanted to did just the opposite of what God told him to do, didn't he? Jonah heard the things, heard the plan of God. God said, "I want you to go down to Nineveh." And Jonah hated Nineveh. He hated them. They were wicked people. You're supposed to hate wickedness. And Jonah hated them. He didn't want nothing to do with going to Nineveh. So what did Jonah do? "I think I got a plan here, God. I'll go to Tarshish. There's probably somebody there now waiting for me to share Christ with. So good luck, God. I know you'll send somebody else to Nineveh." He gets on the boat, heading to Tarshish, and he makes it, right? Not quite. The ship began to be tossed to and fro. They threw Jonah overboard, and when they threw Jonah overboard, a great fish come by to swallow him up. Isn't it amazing? Even when you try to run from the will of God, God will still protect you as His child. Isn't that amazing? God don't, He had every right to say, "Okay, big boy, you deserve this one, drown." But He didn't. He had a great fish to come by, swallowed him up, and then all of a sudden, what did God do? God had to rescue him. The whale, the great fish, went right to the shore, vomiting him up on dry ground, and Jonah was ready to go and do what God told him to do. But then, now here it is. So you do what God tells you to do. Go down to Nineveh. I've already been taken care of. I have to go to Nineveh. I go to Nineveh, and now all of a sudden, God does something different. He didn't destroy them. The people repented of their sins, and God didn't punish them. So what happened to Jonah? Jonah got extremely angry. Jonah was disappointed with God. You ever been disappointed with God?
Yes.
Let's be honest. I've been disappointed with God. Yeah, I have. I've been disappointed. So, preacher, we shouldn't be disappointed with God. Well, our human side says we ought to. The spiritual side says you never need to. But he was disappointed with him. So God gave him an object lesson. Isn't it amazing the lessons of life that you have to catch that life's journey? It's just one lesson right after another. So he's disappointed. Jonah goes off and pouts. Anybody ever pouted? Jonah pouted. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble. But Jonah pouted. Jonah went down there and just pouted. And God had this great big old plant to grow up and shaded Jonah. Isn't that amazing how God still takes care of us even when we're disappointed with Him? He still takes care of us. Even when we disobey Him, He still takes care of us. Now, He punishes us And sometimes our hearts breaking is worse than any kind of punishment you could ever get. But he still takes care of us. So he had this great big old, this juniper tree grow up. It shaded Jonah. The sun's not beating on his head. And then all of a sudden, God says, I got an object lesson for you, Jonah. You got to learn this one. He has this worm to come by, eat the plant down. Jonah is sitting out there with the sun beating down on him, and all of a sudden, he's totally frustrated with God. Isn't it amazing? He went from disappointed to frustrated, and God is teaching him lessons all down life's journey. And had every right, just like he does us. Hey, God has a right. When you sin, God has a right to wipe you out. He does. But he cared for Jonah. He loved Jonah. And he slowly brought Jonah back into his will. Now, what he was teaching Jonah, some lessons. I want to share with you just a couple of things here about lessons I believe Jonah learned. I believe, first of all, I believe he could see that God uses all things. He can see all things. See, our problem is we have tunnel vision. All I can see is what's right in front of me now. And I've heard people say, I wish I knew what I got to face tomorrow. No, you don't. It'd scare you to death. I mean, I'm scared to death sometimes as it is. So imagine what you had to face tomorrow. If you were, but God sees past the present. He can see into the future. He knows all things at all times. See, this is the amazing thing about God. This is what the disciples struggled with. When Jesus was here, 100% man, 100% God. The man part of him felt all the pains and all the agonies that we felt. The godly part of him, my friend, knew what he was going to be doing. Nothing caught him by surprise. Even when Peter denied him, he said, you're going to deny me 3 times. So that was the godly part of him, right? But yet and still, he still loved Peter. And just the same way, God still loved Jonah. Here's what's amazing. God still loves us when we're cranky. Anybody ever cranky? Yeah, sometimes we just cranky folks, ain't we? I mean, everybody said, what are you upset about? I don't know, I'm just upset. It's just like the Hatfield McCoys. They were fussing and feuding, and neither one of them knew what they're fussing and feuding about because it happened way back there. But you know what? It's amazing. God still loves us, even when we're cranky. He's still good to us. Even when we go the opposite direction. You know what Jonah, remember, going back to Jonah? Jonah went the opposite direction. God spewed him out on dry land. He went to Nineveh to preach the gospel. People were saved. Then he goes out and pouts because he's ill with God. And what did God do? He was still good to Jonah. He gave him a shade for a little while. You say, well, it didn't last. Things in this world don't last. Even you and I are temporal. We just don't know when the day's coming. You're on your way to your death date. Right now, here's the amazing thing. You have your birth date. We're living the dash now. And soon the death date will come. We just don't know when. So, he loves us even when we're unlovable. Sometimes we're just not very lovable people, are we? Sometimes we're just lovable like crazy. And sometimes we're not very lovable. But God doesn't ever quit loving you. I always tell people this, you'll never make God stop loving you. No matter what you do. You can take God's name in vain, but he still loves you. You can deny him 3 times, but he still loves you. I mean, what could be worse than saying, I don't know him? And then go as far as a curse. But what did Jesus do when he rose from the grave? Go tell my disciples and... What one person did he call out? Peter. Go tell my disciples and Peter that I'm risen. He knew Peter didn't hear it worse than the rest of them did, didn't he? I believe God ministers sometimes to us when we need it the most. And sometimes we feel like we're so far away from us, but he's really taking care of it. He's given us some object lessons in our life. So, and last, I want you to understand, God's in control. God never loses control of your life, even when you feel like life is spinning and you're not getting nowhere. There was a couple somewhere today, and I forget where it was at, but they asked online for somebody to help them. They were off somewhere. but their camper and their truck was stuck and they were spinning their wheels. Sometimes we feel like we're spinning our wheels with God, but remember, God's still in control. He's still in control. And every decision of your life, and every move of your life, and every plan and purpose in your life, everything that happens, there's a purpose. Whether it's a great fish to swallow you to keep you from drowning, or a little worm to eat the shade tree down, God knows what He's doing. All He wants us to do is trust Him. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take Him at His word. Yeah, you say, well, I trust Him, but sometimes I don't live like I do. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's I worry over things, and we spend more time worrying over things than worrying about things about tomorrow that will never come to pass. Matter of fact, if we look at our life, I will grant you, you spend more time worrying over things that never happen than you do over things that do. That's who we are. So, I'm going to bring it to a close. Just because your plans might not be working out just like you want them, don't think God ain't in control. He's got a job lined up. He knows what He's doing every step of the way. All you got to do is yield to Him and let God do the rest. That's the amazing thing about this journey that we're on as God's people. We don't know all the details, but we know where we started. Started at Calvary, right? We know where we're going to end, in a place that's called heaven. What a day it's going to be. Let me pray for you. While I'm praying, they get a song of invitation ready, ever how they choose to do it. Father, I love